Oh yeah, I'll tee this up. It's a fairly small group, so I think this can be somewhat informal, but Henry is prepared to sort of walk through a debrief of what occurred with the annual meeting as well as the board meeting yesterday, which I think had great participation and attendance. It was really nice to see everyone there that could make it in person, and was glad to have a lot of folks participating online as well. Got some really good feedback on like the annual report that was distributed, as well as some of the items we had available. And all in all, I thought it was, a really successful day. So with that, I'll turn it over to Henry to make his remarks.
Yeah, thanks, Jackson. And I know we here in the room, we were present yesterday, and it was really good to see you all. Thanks for attending. And I'll just go ahead and summarize some of the results because we do record these and make them available for folks who might want to watch them later. So I agree with everything Jackson said. It was really a great annual membership meeting. And I'll kind of just run through a couple of the highlights. The members did act on a regulatory and legislative affairs charter amendment, which was a small modification just to note that in the absence or unavailability of the CEO, the Director of Regulatory and Legislative Affairs may substitute for or act for the CEO. Sometimes there are urgent matters that come up in the legislative and regulatory space. So there's sort of this cascade of authorities for making decisions from the board to the committee to perhaps the chair and CEO consultation, and now in certain instances to the Regulatory and Legislative Affairs Director. So the membership agreed that made sense in some of the regulatory and legislative decision making. And then the members did elect 6 new directors, and I'm excited to welcome all those. I think we're all very excited to welcome those directors. 3 of them have not yet served on the board. So we have 3 new folks. That's Bob Benson, who's our member representative from Grantham. And Bob has a couple of decades of experience as the chief investment officer and senior vice president for Amica Insurance, managing large insurance portfolios. And he also teaches MBA classes at Southern New Hampshire University and is on the investment committee for Bryant University, as well as a number of other, I think, really good business and business education and investment and risk experiences to bring to the organization. And he had previously served on the risk management committee. So very pleased to welcome Bob Benson to the board. We also have Bill Baber being elected to the board. Bill has been the chair of CPCNH's Regulatory and Legislative Affairs Committee, and he's got a deep history in public service, serving in the State House on the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee, and chairing the Dover Energy Commission, as well as a number of other areas of engagement. So very glad to have Bill joining the board of directors from the city of Dover. And then finally, Tom Rooney. Tom Rooney is the member representative from Portsmouth, and Tom works for TRC Solutions, which is an energy efficiency and demand response program administrator. One of the things Tom did was he administered multi-million-dollar energy efficiency program funding under the ARA program back in the early 2010s. This is the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. Federal monies being invested into efficiency and renewable energy programs at the state level. So that's a really key experience that Tom brings. We're very pleased to welcome Tom. He's been engaged in the energy scene in New Hampshire as he's very involved with Clean Energy New Hampshire and some other partner organizations. And then also welcoming back Terry Clark from Cheshire County to the board, who has previously served, and Jamie Hess from New London, Clyde Carson from Warner, also the chair of our finance committee as well. These were the folks who were elected. So very pleased to have the board grow and continue in that successful fashion. And let's see, moving from there, we had some good presentations from our outgoing chair, Clifton Bilo.
There's one more. We actually elected 7 because we also then, I guess I'm jumping ahead to the annual board meeting. Sorry.
But it's a good point. So Dave Hemingway, very gracefully, we had an extra seat available. One of our board directors, Craig Putnam from Hudson, decided it was time for him to just step away from the board, and he resigned. And that opened a space. The membership meeting could only act on noticed actions, which was the election of up to 6, but there were 7 seats and Dave Hemingway agreed to step out of the membership election. And then when we get to the board meeting, he was then sort of immediately appointed to that open spot. So very glad to have Dave Hemingway, the chair of the Webster Select Board, and someone who's been involved in the organization for a long time, back on the board as well. Clifton gave a great presentation sort of on our foundational history and our enterprise risk management policy and framework, and sort of reflecting on this winter period. And those materials are available. And I think that was very well received and appreciated by the membership. Andrea Hodson presented an overview of some of the components of the strategic plan and the process. The plan hasn't been entirely adopted, but some of the framework level items, the mission, vision, strategies for impact, have been adopted. And that was, I think, a very good presentation. And there's, I think, a convergence occurring with the strategic planning work and the implementation plan that has been drafted, and some of the sort of action planning at the staff level that is coming together. There's a lot of space for that to come together in the coming weeks and months with some attention. And then I just presented sort of an operational update from the staff and personnel level. So we won't recap all of that, but I think those were very well received by the membership. We were also joined by Don Kreese, the consumer advocate, who made some great remarks and sort of expressed his strong support for the public power initiative that is CPCNH, and our ability to sort of support the interests of residential ratepayers and communities, and align with other key public institutions. So his presence was much appreciated as well. And then I can summarize the board meeting unless folks want to chime in on other membership meeting items. But I will carry on to just a quick recap of our annual board of directors meeting. You'll bear with me. So the meeting started with the election of our officers. So we had the election, and very pleased to have Kim Quirk newly elected to the role of chair. Kim is here with us today, and Kim has, founded and led a number of companies in the state, including a successful solar and energy storage company. She served as the treasurer and on the executive committee for CPCNH, and very glad to welcome Kim in as the chair of the board. So thanks for all your contributions and stepping into that leadership role, Kim. We also, the board also elected Doria Brown as the vice chair. Doria, she's a founder of CPCNH. She's been with the organizing group since the very beginning, representing Nashua, who is the largest member. And Doria's been heavily involved in many of the CPCNH committees, including the executive committee, and just in the governance and evolution of the agency since the very beginning. So very pleased to have Doria stepping into the vice chair spot. She always shows up to board meetings as a very strong voice for good governance and making sure we're very thoughtful in our decisions, and not rushing things or making decisions with the right information available. So I think everyone's very pleased to welcome her into that vice chair leadership role. Let's see, we had an election for the treasurer slot. That's Kathleen Kelly. Kathleen is a little bit newer to the board, but she's got a deep experience in serving on boards and sort of a history in accounting and financial roles. So I think she'll be really equipped to play the treasurer role. And she's been very involved over the past several months, getting up to speed, sitting in on our accounting and eco CFO meetings, and understanding some of the banking and financial areas of activity for the organization. So very glad to have Kathleen stepping into that role. And then finally, secretary, Andrea Hodson from Harrisville has been elected secretary. Andrea is another sort of longtime leader for the organization, and Harrisville was the first town to adopt community power. Andrea has previously served on the executive committee and in some leadership roles, such as chair of the governance committee. So very glad to have her joining us as our secretary. And and the other item of action by the board was just recognizing Clifton and his leadership as the outgoing chair over the past 3 years, and the leadership role you played, Clifton. So that was a nice thing to have, and we've got a nice plaque and frame version of that, and moving into the new office space, maybe there'll be a place for it there.
And the walking staff.
Yes, can't
Yes.
forget that.
Yeah, and a nice present of a local artist crafted walking stick with the CPCNH logo. Other actions by the board. The board did approve the return of New Hampshire Electric Co-op's customers in the town, or the default customers in the town of Wilmot, which is primarily served by New Hampshire Electric Cooperative, which has been a point of ongoing discussion, and a good sort of collaborative exercise with our sort of fellow public power entity, the New Hampshire Electric Co-op. And the board also approved for execution, subject to final legal review, the power purchase agreement for Poverty Plains. So this is a 5 megawatt community solar project under development in the town of Warner, sort of shovel ready. It could be, one of the close to the largest community scale solar project in the state, if developed, and it's on track for coming online next summer in 2026. So this is something our Director of Projects and Programs, Mark Bollinger, has been working very hard on for the past 6 to 9 months. And it's just exciting to sort of move into that space of developing local energy assets that are beneficial for members and for customers. So a very exciting milestone to have that approved by the board. We had committee reports. There's a lot of really good material reflecting on the past year. There's so much. We had 40 to 60 members in the meeting, in the room, and online, or individuals representing about 40 members. And so there's a lot of material. I think there's a good sort of handoff. The board also moved to populate the committees for the upcoming year and to create one new committee, which is the Projects Committee, which will oversee the development and planning and evaluation of projects. And I guess I'll just read the charge. So establish a standing project and programs committee with an initial charge of reviewing and facilitating the development of new projects and programs, as well as monitoring of existing operational projects and programs that benefit CPCNH members, CPAs, and their customers. That's another important step forward for the organization. And glad to have lots of good participation sort of rounding out all of our very good committees. And I guess the final thing I'll note is the membership did schedule a membership meeting for Friday, October 24th. So good to have that on the books as well. That's essentially the rundown. And I don't know if there's discussion, but happy to chat about any comments folks may have.
Henry, could I just ask about the Poverty Plains? And obviously there was a little debate in terms of legal review. Could you just expand upon what that really amounts to and when we'll know for certain everything's good?
Yeah, there's sort of this important question of, Poverty Plains. It's a project that all of our evaluations understand will have a positive impact, positive net present value and positive impact for CPCNH most likely, and in all of the sort of probabilistic scenarios that were run. It's a relatively small impact to CPCNH in that, in effect, CPCNH is entering into a 20-year power purchase agreement, and the effect of that will be CPCNH will procure a small percentage of our renewable energy certificates from that project. So it is a reallocation of if we would have to buy a certain number of RECs from somewhere. Now we're just deciding we're going to buy those from this project over a period of time at what we expect to be favorable pricing, or something that is at a discount to the market for RECs. The question that was raised is, in investigating this project, we determined that it was not a project under Article 10 of the Joint Powers Agreement, which has certain requirements, such as affording each member CPA the opportunity to sort of actively subscribe to a participation or a portion of that project. This is not that. This is within the complete service bundle of CPCNH, meaning it is portfolio-wide, the portfolio of RECs that CPCNH buys. This will fit into that portfolio. And so there's a 36-month sort of limit from a member noticing to departing the coalition under that agreement. And this, we were just we want to make clear to the board that this does not, because this is a PPA that extends for 20 years, it does not affect that duration or that term of the cost sharing agreement. And what would occur in the event of a departure of a member is there would be some, calculation of their equity share or their share of joint reserve. But in effect, just the rec purchase for CPCNH's portfolio writ large, that could be very readily reallocated to the remainder of the portfolio in that event. I hope that helps to clarify.
Yeah, it's helpful, obviously, with a fairly aggressive timeline to get signed up. I'm obviously anxious that we get the chance to speak clearly and not with any caveat to any potential members. So anxious to know that we've got the all clear from legal, as
I
I'm
think
sure
I
you
have an
do.
email from them that I haven't quite gotten to yet, but I think it's helpful to like be really clear about this point, but I have, very good confidence that, legal will isn't gonna have any catches in this regard.
And I don't want to hog the floor, but just as a follow-up question, this is a PPA, which is the position we're taking with Poverty Plains right now. But obviously, we've got wording in it that we could take a pivot, and if circumstances were more beneficial, reclassify Poverty Plains as a load reducer in the future. I guess that's very much a thing for another day, and it's not in the near-term conversation. So I guess it's mentioned in documentation, but I want to know what level of prospect that might have and what the timeline would be for that, if ever, as I am getting asked those questions.
Can I chime in on this, Henry? And then you
Sure.
can go ahead. Yeah, I mean, to speak to the PPA, it would still remain a PPA. It would just be the terms at which that PPA was operating, from what I understand, would change to this load reducer standpoint. But there were some questions raised early on in an office hours on this subject, I think along the lines of what you're asking, Andrew. And I mean, we would have, I'd say, plenty of heads up that this is even a possibility based upon, enacting legislation or, changes to rules that would allow us to even switch a project over to be a load reducer if it was advantageous. And so I think from a member subscriber standpoint, as soon as we had any indication that that was a possibility, we'd be able to bring that or raise that awareness and make sure that people have plenty of heads up. But it's a fair point. I mean, I don't think we have any certainty at all as to when that could occur at this stage.
Yeah, I'm happy to let Cliff jump in as well. You're on mute, Cliff.
Yeah, I went to go unmute and that a window jumped over from the left. Yeah, it's not going to be, certainly not going to be in the next year or two. It's probably requires legislation, which has never gotten further than through one chamber. The Senate did pass it once or twice, but and then the utilities will have to change their load settlement systems, which probably would add more time even after a legislative fix. And the PUC, to the extent they might have addressed it through a regulatory process, they've just punted that away and pushed that off down the road by at least a couple of years. So I think it's safe to say that it's going to be treated as a load reducer in any case. But the question is, could we or individual CPAs be direct off-takers of the power supply?
Right.
And that's what would require the change. So I think for the foreseeable future, it would continue as a group net metered municipal host.
Great, thank you.
That was interesting to hear you bringing up the rec reallocation. That makes a lot of sense. And the way I was thinking about it as well is, in most cases, since we're showing probabilistically this is going to be in the money, meaning we're getting recs that are, below market value from this project, that when it comes to a conversation surrounding a withdrawal timeline, I mean, even without a reallocation, I mean, we true up Rex sort of at the end of the year, but anything that's sort of helping the financial situation of our programs should help with, a more expedited timeline for withdrawal as well.
And on the load reducer point, when we're able to implement those sort of market enabling functions through policy, the idea, this is it's a big project and sort of a step forward in developing projects and for New Hampshire's current market, but it's a very small project in terms of our overall portfolio. So changes in policy to enable load reducers would then create, a much greater level of opportunity to develop new and other projects that are load reducers. And we could convert this one, but I think really that then it becomes, an open marketplace for development of many more load reducer type projects, whether that's generation assets, solar trackers, solar plus storage, or like kind of the virtual power plant distributed energy vision, maybe many households, many batteries incentivized with price signals to realize the value of load reduction. And just on this point, since we're here and chatting, I did attend the Business and Industry Association Energy Symposium on Wednesday. There were a panel of legislators, and then the sort of closing remarks were from the Director of External Affairs, Executive Director of External Affairs from ISO New England, providing a market update. And, he talks about we're expecting to double our energy generation capacity needs over the next, up until 2050. And, the duck curve of solar really drops down. So 2 p.m. in the middle of the day has a lower demand than 2 a.m. in the middle of the night because solar is dropping all of the load behind the meter solar. And then there's the steep ramp. And somebody asked the question, is ISO considering virtual power plants as a solution? And the gentleman had a very helpful response where he said, I think it's a great idea. It's really a question of state policy to enable their retail markets through price signals to provide that solution. And ISO, would be very supportive. If the states want to go ahead at a retail level, develop virtual power plants to solve our duck curve challenge, please do, because we're trying to figure out how to develop, double the generation capacity to deal with intermittent renewables over the coming years. So
definitely happening in other states in ISO New England territory, like Massachusetts. And so New Hampshire's just way behind on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think
Arlac, Clifton, go for it.
And
keep going for it.
And some of those states, I'm not intimately familiar with, like Kim, like you say, the Massachusetts Clean Peak Standard. They have some sort of load management programs and policies. I don't know that the sort of load reducer price signal market animation has been proven out in any one of these states. And there's this opportunity for New Hampshire to really be a leader in the true retail market enablement, which again, we at CPCNH are in a position to support.
I think of it as CPCNH is a leader in being able to support those first programs in New Hampshire. But yeah, Massachusetts and California got it all figured out, and there's good results, really good results. So we should, I think the state has the information, they're just not ready to do it.
I wouldn't go so far as to say Massachusetts has it all figured out.
Okay, yeah, they have it all figured out.
Because they're probably doing it at a suboptimal way in terms of the cost and expense of doing it, because they're doing it largely through highly structured regulated programs, because they don't have interval metering that's widespread yet, so they have to work around that. But that is starting to be deployed to Massachusetts, and that will give them the opportunity. And Maine is also moving in this direction because they do have widespread interval metering.
Yeah, makes a big difference, definitely.
Good stuff. What else are folks interested in touching on, or any other comments and questions about the meetings, or just generally?
I was just gonna say, if you look right now, I checked the system demand from ISO because I was curious, and it's almost approaching like a 25% reduction from the morning peak at around 8 a.m. to the current system demand. And I mean, that's pretty much all attributed to behind the meter solar. So yeah, it's having a real effect. I know the distributed energy working group is really doing a lot to project and forecast the impacts of the growth of distributed energy on ISO New England as a whole. And they have some like super interesting content and slide decks. And I've looked through some of it and would encourage others to check it out as well. They even like go down to projections on a county level within New Hampshire, which I thought was cool and not something I had seen that granularity before. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Paul, were you gonna make a comment?
Yeah, it's more of a question. I didn't hear anything mentioned at the annual meeting yesterday, and haven't heard in quite some time about this topic or this issue, more accurately. The Peterborough net metering debacle, where Eversource erroneously moved a large net metering client onto CPCNH's load. Has that been resolved, or what's the status of that?
You know, there was some updates about a month ago in the dialogue there. I don't have that information at my fingertips.
I can tell you what I know. And that's the last communication I had from Brian was that he had proposed an alternate arrangement and never heard back from the generator. And so it's just in limbo.
Right. And
I can also confirm that. Since then, I have heard an update from our legal counsel that there was no response for quite a while, and it appears as though that a particular hydro generator, their legal counsel may have changed within the firm or something like that. But in any case, part of the background on that was that Eversource allegedly says that they warned them that they could get switched and that they would need to switch back to get all their credit. And moreover, Eversource collected revenue. That generator was registered in the ISO New England market. So Eversource collected revenue for the, I forget what it was, 2 or 3 months that they were on our service. They were never flagged as net metered, so we didn't know to exclude them. Eversource said they noticed them. They were never willing to share whether they got a notice or not. But moreover, they weren't willing to share their production data so we could make a claim against Eversource that the revenue they were generating during that time should have gone to them or to us to offset or to compensate them for their output. So it's a little odd that Eversource collected that revenue but wouldn't credit it, and that they would not disclose to us what that was, so we could make the argument. So the long and short is we offered a settlement, a sum of money that was part of what they missed out on, but they declined that, and they were going to make a counteroffer. They never followed through, and we're kind of thinking that they may have decided that they don't really have a case, but for whatever reason they didn't even, we had a settlement on the table that they did not act on.
In fact, the last communication I had with Brian was asking me if it was all right with Peterborough to have them withdraw the offer. So as far as I know, they did withdraw that offer.
Yeah, it was open for like 6 months with really no response, and it's like, so it's the ball was in their court, and they simply, as last I heard, it just has not been followed through for months and months on them. There was 2 other hydros that we quickly got corrected, and because they were not flagged, and Eversource did not warn them, Eversource rebuild, and they got all their credit. So this was sort of an unusual situation that that they kind of fell through the cracks, but did not follow up with either us or Eversource to fix it in a timely way, unfortunately.
I recognize they've been slow to respond historically, so that's not surprising at all. I just don't, or more curious, given our cash position, what contingent liability that may or may not have against our organization, should it proceed.
Yeah, they, there's no indication that we're going to proceed. And with the passage of time, would be increasingly difficult for them to make a claim. But in any case, the magnitude of the issue, it's not, in any case, it's no more than 5 digits. So the magnitude of this issue is not such that it would make a critical difference one way or the other, I don't believe.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, I hope everybody has a great spring weekend. Hopefully we get good weather, although I think we'll see. And nice to see you all, and we'll see you soon.